What's poppin', everybody? Hello and welcome to Popcorn Culture. My name is Ben Carlin and I am your host. Here with me today is my brother Jay, who will be in every episode.
Glad to be here co-hosting the Pop with you today, Ben.
Okay, I'm honestly, I'm buying in. Mom told me the other day that she was listening to the episode where we called you the other uncle.
Oh.
And she thought it was the funniest thing ever.
Oh, great. Now Mom's on your side.
Yeah, I know. Had to fight hard for that one. But you can be co-uncles with Tyler. You know,
Okay.
I think that's a fine way to put it. Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very exciting stuff. Okay, so diving into today's episode, I feel like I've been tucking the corny joke right in at the end. Do you think I can squeeze it in at the beginning?
Ben, I would like to say I believe you can, but history isn't on your side at this point.
It's true.
Even though you're bringing it up right now, even though it feels like you're seconds away from saying it.
Right.
Who knows?
There is no inevitability in this world, people. The harsh realities of things.
The harsh reality. Ben is very close to saying the corny joke. Will he get there? I don't know.
I feel like we're going to. Here we go. All right. So I actually have two today.
Yeah.
Two, because I thought the first one was just like, short, sweet zinger.
Yeah.
And then the other one I thought was just super fun.
Okay.
So the first one's going to come from Jacob Fisher, who says, "How many apples grow on a tree?"
Is this like a riddle? Like all of them?
It's exactly that. Yes. Look at you go. Oh,
wow.
I love it when you get it right. That's exactly right. All of the apples grow on the tree.
Apples grow on the tree, right? This is like what side of a chicken do the feathers grow on?
Both.
The outside. See, you're like the left side.
I see what you did. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, if a rooster lays an egg on top of a house, which way will it roll down?
Roosters don't lay eggs.
Exactly.
Yay! Oh, look at me go.
Oh man, we're flying.
We're flying. Okay, so maybe we're getting multiple because Jay dropped a corny riddle this
corny
week.
riddles.
Hey,
Whoa.
how about you? Okay, the next one comes from Vanessa Izquierdo, who says, "Why did Barty Crouch Jr. stop drinking?"
Why did Barty Crouch Jr. stop drinking? Probably because Dumbledore barged in and was like, "Yo." What up, dude?
That did play a small role in it, but it was because it was making him moody.
Oh,
Pretty good,
because
huh?
it turns him into moody.
I read that one. It was like
good.
too good.
That's very good.
As always, if you guys have corny joke submissions and want to send them to me at popcornculturepod@gmail.com, I do super appreciate it.
Yes, we always love a good corny joke here. Now, Ben, I'm looking at our show notes here.
Yes.
And it says, Ben sold his dream car.
I did.
Tell me what happened. So what was your dream car?
Okay, so my very first car when I was 16 was a hand-me-down from Dad, which when I first discovered I was getting a hand-me-down car, I think that I massively underappreciated the car that I was being given. But it was an Isuzu Trooper 2, a 1996. It was green. I called her Sue.
Nice.
And it was amazing. We've talked about all the exploits we've been on where I took it basically to the moon and back. It was full stock.
We did dumb things in the Trooper. In Sue.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the dumber things were things we did not inside of Sue, but outside of Sue.
Which was the process of actually like riding the vehicle.
like riding the vehicle from the outside. Whether that be on the roof, whether it be just standing on the little step because it had like a little step to help you get up because it was a bit of a hike up to the seats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although at one point in time, so this is like the state I was in, because here's the thing, like you see somebody drive past you on the street in like a crazy lifted truck or Jeep or something. It's got all the things.
Yeah.
It's like, as much as you might despise that person or be like, this guy.
There are only two reactions to that person. Like either you really appreciate the stuff, the additions they've made to their off-road vehicle, and you as a fellow off-roader can be like, wow, that's some serious
you got some cool stuff
you got there,
yes.
friend. Or I think probably the more common reaction is like, well, oh my god, this guy is a particular kind of driver that now I'm sitting next to.
Yeah. So there's plenty of that. But here's the thing about those particular people is that like when you're seeing it is a very like showy hobby in particular. It's typically very loud. It's very eye-catching in a way that is either positive or negative, again, based on the reasons you just described. But the thing that you might need to keep in mind is that for this person, that is like their collection.
Right.
Like, so if you have like a collection of like rare comic books or action figures or even not rare anythings, but like you're particularly into one thing and you've collected a whole bunch of stuff revolving that one thing, like that person's one thing is their vehicle.
That is a very good way, I think, to think about it, because you're right. Like, if you're someone who just has like an action figure collection or something that you can house within your home, then it's not that might not elicit similar reactions from people who don't get it. They'd be like, wow, you spent a lot of money on Pokemon cards. Okay, you're like 33 years old. Or they might be like, dude, amazing collection you have here.
Right. The more you are able to understand somebody else's hobby, the more you are able to appreciate it. But I would say one thing about myself in particular is that I don't have like one like locked in hobby for myself. I just appreciate hobbies.
You just appreciate that people appreciate things.
Absolutely. And I feel like that is like the thing where it's like I can see anything. Like it doesn't matter. And this is like what makes me excited about being like a parent, is that like there is no one thing that like my children could pick that I couldn't be into.
That is very true. It's like, it does not matter what like Luke or Nick or Nate come to me with. It is like, you have my full support.
It's like, I'm in. What do we need to do?
I'm in. Other people could bring me the same thing and I would laugh it off. But you, I will be behind you no matter what.
I got you. But so that being said, going back to Sue, like you said, we had like the runner boards on the side, which were like steps that you could like, get into the vehicle with. And when Dad bought it, that was like an add-on, package of some sort, like, that made it better. Like you probably paid more for it. But as I was progressing, though, I couldn't afford anything to do with this trooper. Like I couldn't lift it. What you might not understand about those big burly tires is they cost like $300 a piece. Whew. And you need 5 of them,
right? Because
you have the spare.
Yeah.
So it's like when you see these things, it's like appreciate people's tires, because tires be expensive.
They be expensive.
Or don't appreciate it, depending on who you are. But so like for me, an air quotes upgrade that I could make to the trooper was taking those running boards off. Like that was
taking it. How is that an upgrade?
Well, because it increases your clearance. So
I
because
see.
They might be the things that would hit, like a rock or a root or something that was sticking out. So if you could make the bottom of the vehicle, 3 inches higher by not having those there, then you've gained something in your performance factor.
You've taken off something you could damage.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
my huge limitation as a 16-year-old kid was I had absolutely no resources like at my disposal to go and add things to this vehicle. So the best thing I could possibly do was just remove things from it in order to make it better. And all the while, I would always look around because I had this trooper, which honestly was amazing. Like it never failed me. It always got out of everything. Like I was always blown away with my completely stock vehicle. But I always wanted the Jeep Wrangler, because the Jeep Wrangler is like built for this stuff. Like they build it knowing that you are going to take the stock wheels off of it and put bigger wheels on it.
Right.
Like they give you attach points for like additional lights on like the grill or the windshield or, the front bumper, the back bumper. Like everything is made so that it is very, very, very easy to work on. And as a result, there's just tons and tons and tons of aftermarket parts, which makes them more affordable.
Right.
And, as a result, the entire cycle works within itself really nicely so that these, Jeep owners can go and do like really fun Jeep stuff. And so
there's definitely something to the Jeep Wrangler in particular. Like it has a specific vibe to it that I think everyone understands.
Yes.
Like no one's just like going out looking for a new daily driver and like settles on like, you know what? I just looked at all the data. This made the most sense. So I got the Wrangler.
Right.
Like everyone who owns a Wrangler is in on the vibe.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So like one thing you might not know, or maybe you do know about people who own Jeep Wranglers, is there's such a thing as the Jeep Wave. So anybody who drives a Wrangler, if you pass another Wrangler on the road, you kind of do this like 2-finger, like yo. Like, so if you ever see like a handprint on like the backhand side of someone's like rear view mirror, that's them being like, in case I didn't see you, here's a handprint wave.
There's the wave
that I can offer you. And it's kind of like a fun little club you're in, and people are really good about it. Like I would say if I were driving across town and passed, 15 Jeeps, there's a lot of people who drive Wranglers in our area. I would bet 13 of them
Right.
like will have waved at you.
I know that the Jeep Wrangler has the wave. Mini Coopers have the wave.
They?
I think so, because Dad had a Mini Cooper for a while, and that's like its own club.
You kind of like
for sure.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what does not have a wave is a Nissan Juke.
Oh.
Yeah, I used because that was the first car I purchased myself.
Yes.
And like I was familiar with this concept of like, oh yeah, if you see someone who has like the same car or whatever, you get a little wave, like we're in on the club. And it was such a unique looking car at the time. And it was marketed specifically, like the marketing at the time was like very much at like young professionals.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It was like
Yeah.
a very cool, capable vehicle that was also like a relatively low barrier to entry cost-wise.
And there was like a certain amount of like zippiness associated with it. So there was something sporty to it. And I always really loved my particular, my Juke,
Yeah.
as it were. But what I quickly found out was that, and I would see other people and be like, oh yeah. And I would always go for the wave. And I would just never get it in return. Because what I found out was that despite it being marketed at like young professionals and that being like one big group of people who owned them, the other group was like housewives or like I would say like moms whose kids have already gone to college for whatever reason. That is like the other group was like somewhat older women.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and probably you've never noticed because you don't look at people driving Jukes, but of course you notice other people who have the same car as you, and I could not believe how often be like, man, these are not the same people as me.
Oh, it's so funny though, because I would say mine was almost the exact opposite, which is that like one of the like aquarium people in general are like a huge slathering of people. Like you could not predict one person to the next. They couldn't be more wildly different other than the fact that they both liked aquariums and Jeep Wranglers.
Oh, interesting.
So back when we had our retail store, I would tell you, it is not uncommon for a Jeep Wrangler to have parked in our parking lot every single day, if not for there to be like occasions like a Saturday or Sunday where there were like 3 of them lined up.
Ooh, it is interesting. That is a very interesting like Venn diagram, but not maybe that surprising. I can see why it would happen because as we've discussed, the Jeep it's a hobby unto itself.
It is,
and it's like a high investment hobby, as is aquarium. So you can see why the kind of people who are into aquariums would also be attracted to Jeep ownership.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think there's also like a little bit like people who are into like nature and the outdoors also tend to like aquariums because it's like bringing a small piece of the outdoors into your direct environment.
Right.
And so I think that there's also a little bit of that parallel there where it's the outdoorsman in you. So anyway, that was me for forever. So I always wanted the Jeep Wrangler, but they had this like great reputation as I was going through my teenage years or whatever, and most specifically because they're frequently used off-roading, but they kind of have like the reputation for the potential to like flip. But I think it's typically because it's not like on roads, it's like on like rock crawling or whatever the case may be. It's like, yes, more Jeeps flip, not on roads. But that being the case, I think it was something that it was kind of like mom and dad couldn't quite buy into it, and they also probably saw what I was doing.
Oh yeah, there was no way they were gonna like get you like more tools to go be dangerous. Exactly,
which is probably wise on their part. Yeah,
indeed.
But like I said before, so like the only things I could do to my Trooper was to take things away from it because I really didn't have the resources to add to it. So now here as an adult, like I finally reached the point in time where it was like, you know what, I can go and like it's my choice now. Like I can go and buy a Jeep Wrangler and I'll have it. And I was so excited. Like I went and I got it and it was, like bright red and it was amazingly cool. And I was so excited about it. But the like thing that I kept running into all of a sudden was the exact thing that I knew as a kid, which is that like making these things beefed up is so expensive.
Right.
It's like, and so I had Jeep catalogs delivered to my house. I had like, a bookmarked page of all of like the parts that I wanted to buy, the lift kit, the wheels, the rims, like, all of the different stuff. And I had, my Instagram, if you were like going to my Discovery, you would see all sorts of aftermarket lifted Jeeps and stuff like that. Like it's what I was consuming, but I could not for the life of me pull the trigger on these things.
Oh, what was holding you back?
It's like even having potential resource to purchase them, it is like my brain cannot justify it.
Right.
Like, it's like, I love it. And like, I want to go and be a part of that. But it's also like, when I bought it, it was like a brand new Wrangler. And there's the other part of my brain that's like, this is like the nicest car you've ever owned. You can't like put a huge lift kit on it and go drive it through the woods.
Right.
Like, you can't do that. Like, if you had seen the sides of my Trooper, it no longer had clear coat on it. It was just streaks from
Right.
all of the branches that had been dragged across it.
Right.
Like, I don't think you could buff it to the point where it would just look like a normal green car again. It was, yeah. So I just couldn't do that. And it was like, okay, well,
So, but like, was there no value in just the aesthetics of the upgrades?
they call that mall crawlers.
Mall
And-
crawlers?
Yeah, because
Okay.
those, like, that's the idea, is that like you upgrade them, but they're so nice at that point that like the only place you take them is like to the mall, like in like
see.
parking lots and stuff like that, which is fine. I actually have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever, and
Right.
that is exactly who I would have been, because there's no way that I would have taken this ridiculously like nice vehicle to me, off road.
Right. But then if you're not going to go off-road, then are the upgrades... I can see the circle.
And yeah, exactly.
Like,
And
it will look cooler.
they will look cooler. But here's the other thing too, is that like my brain in some instances is utilitarian enough that like I know and appreciate that other Jeep owners who will appreciate the upgrades that I made will appreciate them if they are performance capable. And do you see where I'm going with this? So it's like, I don't want to take it off-road, but the only parts that I would be willing to buy are the ones that would perform off-road, because the only other people who are going to appreciate it are the people who take theirs off-road, but I'm not taking mine off-road.
I see the problem.
Yes. So like there are air quotes aesthetic lift kits where you could like make it taller, and it's like, if you were to take it off-roading, there'd be a very realistic chance that if you hit a rock too hard or something, it would cause the shackle to like crumple, and it's not made to actually go do anything other than make your vehicle taller.
Gotcha.
And those are very inexpensive.
Gotcha.
But yeah, on the flip side, the real ones cost an enormous amount of money, and you have to you have to
But they look the same.
but well, to the lay viewer
And you're only... But so, it's so interesting because like, it sounds like the only people you're actually trying to impress
are other Jeep drivers.
are other Jeep drivers.
Which I imagine for a lot of Jeep drivers maybe is also the goal. It's like, but it's not like you're trying to, like outdo others. It's almost just like you're that much more part of the club,
Right.
by way of doing it. So anyway, long story long, I got to the point with this thing where it was like, I also own a truck that I have that is nice and fine, and Alice has her car, which is nice and fine. So we have like the baby on the way. We have 3 vehicles and only 2 drivers in the household, and it's like, okay, we're probably at the point where it's like this could do more for us being sold than it can do for us in our driveway.
Right.
And the truck that I have, I can use for a variety of other purposes. Like it's a very
functional vehicle.
It's a very functional vehicle. In the scheme of things, if we're going on a road trip or taking the baby anywhere, we're going to be taking Alice's car. So really the outlier at some point in time started to be the Jeep. And so it was like...
So even though it's the car you've wanted your whole life and you have it now, like it ended up being the one that was just the least... Is it like ironic that it's like you wanted it because of all these like crazy things you did in your youth that once you had it as an adult, you were too wise to do again?
Yes. I think that's a huge part of it. Like, people talk about like the midlife crisis or whatever. And I've wondered about this before. We've probably even talked about it before, but it's this thought that like what I've always sort of imagined is happening, because it usually happens like in your mid 40s or so, and you go out and it seems like many people buy a sports car, or just very specifically a car. Could even be a Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah.
But my guess is that like what happens is you are of the age that you really want something, and then you start to have like responsibilities and your first job and getting married and starting a family and doing all those types of things. And it's such a long period of time before you start daydreaming about that type of thing again, that when you do, you just land exactly where you left off.
Right. You just like put that book on the shelf and now it's like, oh yeah, where was I at it with daydreaming? You picked it up and you're like, right, Jeep Wrangler, okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. It's like that's the page you left it on. You put a bookmark in there, you put it on the shelf, and you come back and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this.
This is what I want. I have it in this book.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's ultimately what happened to me. And so anyway, my whole thing in my head though is like, it was a very, very practical decision for our household on the whole. Like, we've talked about it before, but I'm like renovating the house and doing a whole bunch of stuff to it. So it's like, okay, I have a depreciating asset that I'm not using that's sitting in my driveway, and I can sell that and put it into an appreciating asset, which is my home, which is like me thinking very like,
what a responsible decision you've made.
Accepting, because I have another note here in our show notes.
Okay.
Because I was talking to Alice about it, and she's like, are you okay with doing this? Like, I know this is your dream car.
Because it's not like hurting you to continue owning it either.
Not at all. Not at all. This is just something that my family could benefit from doing.
Right.
So otherwise it's fine. It's not hurting me in any way, shape, or form. But so I was like talking to her, and I was like, okay, well, like maybe if I do it, I can like take some of the money that we got from selling it and just do something fun for my truck. And that would be like a fun way to be like, okay, like the legacy of the Jeep is that I got to do something to my truck. And so promptly she's like, okay, well, like, what would you want to do? Like, would you want to put like a,
I can't lift the same problem.
The very first thing she asked was like, well, do you want to like lift it? And I was like, no. Like,
if I was going to lift something, I wouldn't have sold the Jeep.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not doing that. And she's like, oh, well, how about like one of those like caps that you can put on the back so that like you can have the truck bed itself protected from, the elements. And I was like, okay, that's practical. But how about this? Am I too old for subwoofers?
Oh, are you too old for subwoofers?
Okay.
Oh goodness. Oh boy. I remember. So it's interesting you bring up subwoofers, because earlier you were saying there was nothing you could add to the Trooper.
But there was one.
There was. I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember you adding some big old beefy subwoofers there in the back.
I did. I was that guy. I was the guy who you'd pull up next to at the traffic light, and like their license plate is like,
right,
like you just going crazy. And I have to tell you, and that we've discussed it before, I don't know hardly anything there is to know about music at all. I can't play an instrument. I don't even know the lyrics to probably more than 3 songs, like start to finish.
Right.
But one thing I have always liked my entire life is speakers.
Right.
Like, I like the sound that they make. And I remember I had a good buddy in high school who got subwoofers for his Jeep at the time. And he was like, yeah, like you got to come over. And I didn't even know what a subwoofer was. And I was like, what is this thing? And I remember getting in the car, and he just cranked up a song, and like the whole thing just like launched. And I was like, I have to have this.
Right.
Like, this is so cool. And I have to tell you, this was not something in any way, shape, or form that I was purchasing for external validation. Like, it wasn't something where I thought that it was cool that like my car sounded loud from afar. This was purely something that I liked the way it sounded inside of the car.
See, it's so interesting that that's why you purchased it, because the way in which you enjoy it forces it on everyone.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the thing, is that like, again, this is like, it feels ridiculously obnoxious. And I've actually even looked it up, and where the subwoofer can even go in my truck is under the same seat that the car seat would go on.
Oh.
And so like, I'm like driving to work this morning, and I'm like, I'm kind of like looking back in like the little like side view mirror or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's where it would go. And it's like, but I can't have the baby sitting on top of a
subwoofer. I don't think so. Let me just say on this front that just yesterday on my drive home, I pulled up next to someone at the stoplight who indeed had some woofs. As it were. And I was just like, I will admit that I was just like, ugh, this is so loud.
Yes. I have no appreciation for this
I was
gentleman.
like, this is obnoxious. I was like trying to side eye on the guy, like, you serious right now?
Right.
I'm trying to listen to a book.
I got a theory I'm working on.
I'm listening to Name of the Wind, people.
Right.
Or The Wise Man's Fear, but
Yeah.
Anyway. So I would say that would you get, let me run this by you.
Okay.
That it sounds like your truck is not, like, you could put subwoofers in there, but it will be in the way of where the baby needs to go. So that's a problem.
Well, it's not technically in the way. So JL, they make a stealth box.
Oh, they make a stealth box
that goes underneath the seat.
Yeah, you know how stealthy subwoofers are.
Of course, nobody ever notices them.
No one notices them.
What is that?
What is that?
I can't even see where the box is.
See it.
Is it stealthily hidden somewhere? Yes, it is. Thank you for asking.
Let me ask, could you just get subwoofers for not your car, but like just for your home?
Yeah, well,
because you like speakers, you could just have nice speakers in your house.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's possible, but it's different. Like, I don't know what it is about being in your car, but like there is like a strange kind of like therapeutic something that comes like when you pull up at your house and you just like sit in your car for a second and you're like, well, Alice was reading a book about like, I don't know, something. And I think it was like psychology and marriage and something or another. And one of the things that they talk about is like this transition time. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you are to, come home from work and you walk in the door and there's like 10 chaotic things happening all at once, it's like you haven't quite had enough time to shift your brain from like work brain to now I'm home, try to tackle this stuff brain. And the idea is that if you can allow 10, 15 minutes for that transition to happen, then you are 10 times more equipped to walk in and handle the chaos. Mm-hmm. And so it's like a very small amount of time can make all of the difference in the world when it comes to actually like being effective at what you're doing. And I think this is just true about me. And I feel like I've always sort of had like a sense of like calm in my vehicles anyway. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's probably why it's almost like it's kind of like my car is like my childhood bedroom in a way. It's like this is my space.
This is
like,
your space.
Yeah.
Do you not have like a room in your house that is just like your space?
No.
No?
Not really.
You don't have like an office space?
I do sort of have an office space, but
I'm just thinking about your house and I can think of like 3 rooms that I think aren't used at all.
Almost everything is used for something.
Well, but like your attic is like a workout space, right? Like that could be like an alone space. Or don't you have like like when we worked from home, you had an office space?
I do have an office space, but that is about to become the nursery.
Okay. And then what about the room that leads to the attic?
That's Alice's closet.
Oh, that's Alice's closet.
Yeah.
I see.
And then the other one's the guest bedroom.
Okay.
So.
I see.
I know. So anyway, it's something to consider.
Okay.
But that was sort of like my same thing, kind of picking up on my daydream notebook, being like, okay. So like this is like an opportunity where I can take the Jeep's legacy, I can apply it to something, but what would that something be? Because again, I have all the same problems I have.
Does it have to be truck related?
It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
But it feels like it's in that category.
It's in like this. That's like the spiritual successor way or something.
Right.
Could you just get like way better speakers?
Conceivably.
Like, would that still give you the same like?
You're thinking it. You've already taken it too practically.
I've already taken it too practically.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
What about just a giant brush guard? Just way too big.
Okay. The thing about brush guards that people don't know, this is one thing where if you're in the know, maybe you can know. There are 2 types of brush guards, but many of them are purely aesthetic. Like they will actually cause significantly more damage to your vehicle if you run into something with a brush guard. Like all you have really done is taken the pressure points of your front grille and made them like that much more focused.
Okay, I think I've got it, Ben. Are you ready?
Okay.
Winch.
A winch.
A winch.
Like to reel myself in?
To like reel other stuff in.
Okay, I actually don't hate that.
That's fun, man.
It is
no one does this upgrade. And then when you need it, you're like, hold on, let me give it the old.
Let me grab the winch.
I
will tell you that there have been times during snowstorms where I have specifically gone out in my truck to pull people out of like ditches and stuff. Yeah. And that is actually something I take a certain amount of like, I don't know, pride, enjoyment. It makes me happy to help people.
Right.
And I also get to hear, this is another thing about owning like equipment. And I would say most of all of my power tools, my vehicles, my bike, almost all of them have more technology than I have skill. So like almost at all times I am leaving potential on the table because I am not a good enough woodworker to run my table saw as well as it can be run. And I don't haul enough with my truck to have all of its towing capacity fully maxed out.
I don't know. You'd haul a camper.
That's true.
I mean, if that doesn't qualify as utilizing the hauling capacity of your truck, I mean, unless you're trying to do like cross country, like mini tractor trailer hauling or something.
Is that not a hobby?
I don't think that's a hobby.
Is this not an ambition of yours?
I think then you're just a truck driver.
Oh,
Which if you want to be, go for it. It's
okay.
fine. Then you can get some subwoofers. You're already annoying everyone on the road anyway.
I'm glad to know that I have your full support for my big rig ambitions.
There you go.
Okay, so let's transition out of this because I actually think I have a great way to do it.
Okay,
so
here we go.
You had recommended at one point in time that I start to maybe do a little additional reading on some forms of philosophy.
Yes,
and or psychology.
I remember suggesting that here on the pop.
Yeah. So I have done a little bit of that because one topic that I have wanted to talk about on the Super Carlin Brothers main show for a little while is it was sparked finally because there was, like the third instance that I was aware of in the same genre series where all villains have quite literally the exact same like mantra, which is for the greater good.
Right. It's such a weird thing because it sounds like, for the greater good. That sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, it's right. Very, and I think the reason that it's so frequently used is because it's a very compelling like rationale for a villain to have, because it's sometimes at bare minimum you might be able to like understand the logic even if you wouldn't back the methods. So
it's a very convenient way. It's a convenient mindset for a lot of villains, I think, in popular like fiction, because you need a reasonable reason for the villain to be doing their thing. Like evil for just the absolute sake of evil is so boring. But if they have like if they have like a conviction and it's like, yes, it's a lot of bad things, but the ends justify the means, it's for the greater good. Like bad have to do bad, but that's okay, in my opinion, because the net gain is so vast.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So like Thanos is probably like, the giant glowing example of this particular thing. So like Thanos is not out there trying to, do whatever so that he can sit on some great big shiny throne at some point in time and, rule the galaxy. Like he's not like the Emperor from Star Wars in that same regard. So it's like, what his quest to do is basically like, I saw what happened on my planet. There weren't enough resources to go around. I had extreme measures that we could have taken that could have allowed my place to exist, and we didn't do them. And as a result, Titan collapsed. And now I see the same thing happening galaxy-wide.
Very either or, like either it's my way or the planet will collapse.
Yeah, well, and I mean, he is a supervillain.
Right.
Like, there is that.
There's that. It's like, yeah.
So well, I'm not here to tell you that Thanos was a rational thinking man. I'm just telling you where he's coming from.
He thinks he's rational.
Yes, and there is that. But so, his big argument is like, okay, there's not enough resources in the galaxy. This is going to cause a huge problem. What we can do is just cut the entire population in half, and then all of a sudden there will be enough resources. Doesn't that work out really nicely for everybody? And it seems like there's been a whole bunch of models that have suggested that is just simply not the case, and it would have just been a problem again in the future.
Right.
Like this is more of a Band-Aid solution than it is like a like an actual forever solution. But the same thing is true with Grindelwald, and the going back to like his era of reign or whatever in the wizarding world, is that he is basically like the wizard's man. Like we're being suppressed, we're hiding from the muggles, but like look at us, we're so powerful, look at all the great things we can do. Like why are we living beneath them when we could be
Right, like we shouldn't be living in secret. We're the ones with all of the power, and when they find out about us, they're just going to kill us all because they have big weapons. But if we claim power, then we can improve everything for everyone.
Yes.
Is his messaging.
Yes, and the reason that it's probably compelling to the people who ultimately follow him is that it's like, this is someone who is fighting for, wizard rights, like, and I fall into that category.
Because I am a wizard.
Right. But it completely disregards the fact that you are then overtaking just another group entirely. Like it's not altruistic. It's just I'm putting like we are going to be on top. and that's it.
It's a we are superior.
Yes, exactly. And then, and more recently, you know, in this is what finally I was like, okay, what is the what? But in Name of the Wind, who I believe to be the true villains of the story also have the exact same mantra, quite literally the words for the greater good.
I mean, the fact that that's the mantra is like almost like it's starting to be like a red flag.
Yes.
Like, oh, for the greater good, you're the bad guy.
Yeah, it's like now I know who it is.
It's the same thing in a Watchmen with like I think it's Ozymandias. He's like, yeah, guess what? I'm going to cause a giant natural disaster, and that's gonna be how everyone comes together. It's gonna kill people, but everyone will come together afterwards. And they're like, wow, you shouldn't have told us that. And he's like, guys, I already did it. Okay, I'm not like these idiots in other comic books. I'm not telling you until it's done.
Right.
And they're like, what? Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. So anyway, so I was wanting to dig into this. I was wanting to try to understand what is it about this line of thinking that so many various writers have all sort of like come to the same conclusion. That's like this is like the thing. This is like what we need to grab to. And basically I found that it actually fits into like a couple of different styles of philosophy, if I can get my notes to find it here. So basically it falls into the category of consequentialism.
Consequentialism.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the way that this works, I mean, this is exactly Thanos' thinking, basically to the letter. It's that like you are making the decision that provides the best consequences, and like that is the way that you would approach the particular problem.
Right. Consequences meaning that like actions have not necessarily negative consequences, just that like actions have resulting actions.
Yes. And the very famous example of this is like the trolley problem. So you would have like a trolley where you can pull the little railroad switcheroo thing, and if it goes one way, there's one person in the path, and if it goes the other way, there's three people in the path. And consequentialism would say save the three people.
I think normally in this situation, you know the one person. Right?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's one person you know versus three people you don't.
Right.
Okay. Well, either way, I think in some capacity the speaking out in these terms, the argument is that this is 3 versus 1, and the greater end result is that. And I mean, it's a very complicated philosophical problem
for sure
to discuss. And I mean, people could probably go round and round and round and round and round on it.
I think they probably have.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not smart enough to do it. But anyway, so I thought that was very interesting because it sort of like paints it as this idea that like I can like fit it into a box. It's like villains operate in the world of consequentialism. But there are a total of like 3 key philosophical arguments that people might make. And I actually thought the other 2, and this is me just speaking, I'm no expert on this particular topic, but I thought they fit very nicely with the entire argument behind Civil War.
Okay.
That is the Marvel Civil War.
War.
Cap versus Iron Man.
Not the American Civil War.
Not that one. No. This is very different. And the thing about that is it's very interesting, specifically with Cap in mind. So let me describe the other ones. So deontology is basically the right thing is determined by the rationality and in accordance with a moral rule or principle. Which I know sounds like kind of like wordy and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a little highfalutin sounding.
Just a bit. I didn't write that. That was like my copy pasted definition.
Gotcha.
But I would apply this particular idea to Tony Stark in particular.
Okay.
So Tony's big argument in Civil War is that like he has personally seen the result of going unchecked. So at the beginning of Tony's character arc, he is the owner of a weapons manufacturer. He is insanely wealthy because of it. You know, he's this like playboy philanthropist who is known the world over. And basically what's happening right under his nose is his weapons are being sold to people who want to use them for very dangerous reasons.
Right.
And this is like sort of what he ultimately discovers is he's like, I wasn't watching carefully enough and my products were being used in a way that we didn't intend. And because of that, like we needed to halt everything and assess how we're operating as a company. And I think that as he moves forward, you know, in the Marvel universe and you start to see this character grow is he starts to realize that the Avengers themselves kind of are just like the new Stark Industry weapons. Like all of a sudden it's like you've got all of these super powerful people existing out there in the world, and if nobody's actually regulating them, then what's to stop any one of these people from going and doing the wrong thing? But that also means that what you would be doing is assigning, like a group that is determining when and how and where the Avengers act. And when that group would be like able to say like, okay, let's go forward. Like this is the battle we want to take. Like the idea is that is the correct thing to do because like the rules and the rational thinking and everything has been like applied to it and determined like this is the right thing to do. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, Jay, let me just cut in real quick.
Okay.
I have absolutely no idea that we're recording this after the main episode, so I have no idea how well it's going to fit. Did it fit good? Did it fit poorly? Did we just interrupt ourselves mid-conversation?
Who's to say? Maybe we use the little transition slide again.
It's entirely possible.
It is.
The only one
Popsible.
Wow, well
Wow.
said. Well said.
Yeah.
The only one who truly knows is Ethan, the editor, because he's the one who made the decision at the end of the day.
Yes.
Way to go, Ethan. I think that you mostly crushed it.
Probably.
So we're cutting in to today's broadcast in exactly the same format in which we discuss anyway. But we have exciting new news over on our Patreon page. We were able to brainstorm and come up with a couple of cool new ideas, some cool new perks.
Yeah,
and we want to tell you guys.
We got some new things popping off over there.
Look at you go. You were just nailing all these pop.
Look, I mean, everyone knows I'm sitting next to our popcorn machine right now, and let me tell you, you can walk up to the popcorn machine months later and find some popcorn down there and just take a handful if you want. And you will discover that it turns out it's still pretty good.
How about that?
Now, that said though, you can't rely on that forever. You could eat it, but you want that fresh popcorn on top.
Wow, look
you
at you
gotta
go.
freshen it up.
Yes.
So we're freshening up our Patreon.
Hey, with fresh popcorn.
With fresh popcorn.
We're popping new popcorn upon the old popcorn.
Exactly. So everything that's already there is staying pretty much the exact same. But imagine raining down upon you from above, just freshly popped, light little popcorn.
Fluffy, buttery.
Yes.
Popcorn deliciousness.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's surrounding you. It smells amazing.
There you go. Okay, so let's run through the tiers because we're gonna start with our $5 tier, which is host Buzzy B or host Jazzy J or host neither.
Right.
The idea here is that we wanted an opportunity for you guys to submit your votes on who gets to be the one true host each and every single week. With that, as always, you will continue to get after the final pop, which is an additional 10-15 minutes of Jay and I discussing anything we didn't discuss during the main-sode.
Right. Typically feed up, by the way. So we're a little more like relaxed after the final pop, just a little like this.
Right. It's casual.
It's casual. It's
like,
casual. Now I'm gonna put my feet down because it's serious.
I know you're born.
Yeah, so serious right now.
Yeah. It's not after the final pop.
No.
It's feet up mode. Feet down mode.
Right.
I don't really know which one it would be. They both kind of seem like they could
legs
be
crossed mode.
Nailed it.
Yeah,
nailed it.
People are always like, "Do you guys ever uncross your legs?" And I don't know. This is the reason is because I hate when the reason I normally keep my legs crossed because I don't like having that like front of the pants shot.
I know. Yeah. I remember back in the day we used to have our book club that we did, and the way that we would set up our webcam was like in such a position that it was like, this is why don't
I
we
need
just
to constantly.
Why don't we just fix this?
Yeah.
But we never did. It was just like continuously a problem. So I'm sorry if we subjected you to that. Anyway, what else do we have going on here with the new
At the
tier?
$5 tier, I think we are also going to have a monthly live Q&A live stream that will happen on the last Friday of every month, immediately following the premiere on YouTube.
Yes.
Right.
And the idea here is that you guys, tons and tons of people email me. They submit all sorts of questions. This is your opportunity to basically just hop right on in. We're going to have a live stream where we're sitting in the popcorn culture chairs and we're just here to answer your questions.
Right. And it'll be like an exclusive live stream just for patrons. So we'll post the link on the Patreon page, and then we will be chatting just with the select Theater of Colonels that are a member of the Patreon.
Theater of Colonels. That was so good.
Wow.
So good. Okay. Moving on to our new tier. So this is a tier that doesn't currently exist.
Right.
So we're taking some names, we're rearranging, we're doing things a little bit differently, but we will also be including now a $10 tier, which is now Buzzy or B, Jazzy or J, and neither or neither.
Exactly.
At this particular tier, we are going to be doing something called Burnt Popcorn, which is like, it's an episode where Jordan is going to sit down with us and basically go through all of the different things that we either had questions about and never answered,
Right.
things we just got completely and utterly wrong. So Jordan, as ever, who is very wise in all of her ways, will be correcting us and communicating with us on things that we either just left completely wide open, open-ended, things that did not ultimately come full circle.
Right.
And be like, "Where you started a conversation about this. Where was it going?" Like,
Right.
We never got there, guys.
So Jordan is basically going to come in and tie up all of our loose ends and correct us, which is, I'm sure, what so many, I can tell during when we would do the premieres, so often you and I will just like start questioning something and we'll pull out a thread and the chat will absolutely know the answer.
100%.
And they will start correcting us immediately. And we'll just, of course we can't see it because it's not live.
Right.
And we'll just blunder on forward and we're like, I guess we'll never know. But now we
We'll
will
know.
know because we will have burnt popcorn. That's going to be the $10 tier. Jazzy or J or Buzzy or B, whatever. Those will both still, if you sign up for either one, that'll still cast you a vote for whoever you think should be the one true host, Jazzy J. But moving on, then we also are going to have our $25 tier.
Yeah, the $25 tier has been there, but it has a new name.
New name.
So now we're going to have Buzziest B, Jazziest J, and Neitherist Neither.
Exactly.
And I think the cool and exciting new thing that comes with this tier is an additional vote.
An additional vote. So if you're at the $25 tier, your vote will count double for the host of the show. It'll just count for 2 votes. And then you're also immediately signed up for our exclusive quarterly items. The first of which was our Fred the Cup.
Yes, which I actually have right here.
Yes.
This was the first round, and the whole idea here is that it's basically one of the great ways to support any creator, not us in particular, even is by way of their merchandise and stuff. But one of the things that is very difficult is figuring out how much to order.
Inventory.
Yes. And so in a lot of instances, you might think a shirt or an item is going to be super popular and buy a whole bunch of them. And then ultimately people do buy them, but you end up maybe losing money in the process because you overestimated drastically.
Right.
And so what we wanted to do for popcorn culture was try to avoid that as much as possible by basically knowing the exact number of anything we're going to order, meaning that your support is going as far as possible. And it allows us to get a little bit creative with what these pieces of merchandise are going to be. And I can assure you that each and every single one of them, Jay and I, are having an absolute blast planning and discussing and preparing for you guys.
We've got cool ones planned out for the rest of the year, and I'm very excited about them. The prototype, I know we keep talking about it.
I know.
We have seen it. We thought it was going to be here this week. I don't know. I dare say it'll be here next week, but I don't know.
I know. It's killing me.
No.
It's killing me. But I'm dying to show you guys. I think everybody's going to really love it. I think it'll be worth all of the energy, all the waiting, all the hype.
Yes.
It'll live up to it. And then in addition to those, there is one tier that we have also added that if you are just wanting to support the show, if you just want to have a way to support the show, we do have some top tiers.
Some top tiers. Yes.
These tiers will give you 100 votes.
They will for whoever the host is, which I will say, I think at this point, even if multiple people signed up for the Jazzy J, or it's not the Jazzy J, what's mine is called Stovetop Popcorn.
Yes.
If you sign up for Stovetop Popcorn, I think even if multiple people did it, which would be crazy, I still don't think I would quite get there.
I think if 2 people did it, you'd get there.
I don't think so. I think the gap, I don't know what the gap is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have additional tiers out there. This is going to be buttered popcorn, which is mine, which is my preferred method of popcorn. Jay's is stovetop popcorn. And then we also have unpopped popcorn, which would just be 100 votes for host Neither.
That's the anarchy. That's the anarchy vote.
I know, it is.
Yeah. When we have to start the episode, just 15 seconds of silence while host Neither or a Neitherist.
Well, we have to put on our best, like we're waiting at the dentist office stairs, where it's just kind of like a stone cold, blank, absent.
Maybe we'd buy some highlights magazines to flip through.
We would absolutely have to.
Yeah.
I would want to specifically buy old ones too.
Yeah.
Like ones where all the puzzles have already been solved and circled in crayon.
Yes.
It's like, ugh. It's like I can't even be entertained by this old magazine because someone else has already solved.
No, I have no idea what was actually in Highlights magazine, except that every issue contained a "Can you spot the difference?" puzzle.
That was my absolute favorite.
And that was, as far as I was concerned, the only reason the magazine existed was for the spot the difference puzzle.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It highlights what's different
Exactly.
about the two photos.
But the whole thing, if the whole magazine was just that, boy, I bet they'd be doing really well today. I don't know how they're doing. Are they even still around?
It promotes critical thinking.
It promotes critical thinking. And as a kid, I loved it. I'd be like, new highlights. Let me go to that one page. That's it.
There you go. Well, guys, as always, there is no expectation that you provide any support over on Patreon at all. It does absolutely, of course, help the show, and we appreciate all of your generosity just so very much. But absolutely and always, the show will never cost anything to consume. So you can always rest assured that we will always continue to be here.
We will.
Either which way. If you would like to check it out, you can do so at patreon.com/popcornculture.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so moving on from that, though, you have Cap.
Yeah.
And Cap is always interesting because if you're Team Cap, I have to imagine it's because you trust Cap.
Right.
You trust Steve Rogers. And that is basically exactly what would go behind the idea of virtue theory, which is the idea of you do something because it is the right thing to do. And this is exactly Cap's whole argument. He's like, if there's a governing body who says, no, you can't go and save those people, he's like, I'm not going to listen to them because the right thing to do
is to save the people.
It's
Right.
like, even if I am breaking the law to save the people, it's like I am operating within like virtuous thinking. Like
Right.
I am doing the thing which is the correct thing to do, which is to save people.
Right. Cap is much more on the Emir camp of which, if you're unfamiliar with the name of the wind, the Emir, they can go do anything in the world and they are beyond reproach.
Right.
Like everyone assumes all things they do, even if they kicked a puppy or like choked a pregnant woman in the street. I think that's the example they gave.
I think you're right.
They're like, nope, they must be doing it for the greater good. We don't know what their reasoning is, but they know better than us.
See, but no, I would argue that's the consequentialism.
You think?
But I think so, because I think that their argument would be that the Emir held in this regard that it's like if they need to go kick a puppy, then like it must be the case that the consequences of kicking a puppy is positive.
Okay.
I think that would be my argument for it.
Okay.
In this particular case. Whereas I think what Cap embodies in such a great way is like such a pureness, such a like so much virtue that you can trust Cap will do the right things. But being able to do that is almost limited to his individual personal character. Otherwise, it's like my mind almost has to go to the idea that I think Tony is right in this particular argument. It's like in the whole back and forth, I trust Cap to do the right thing, but if it's not him, then I think you have to go Tony. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. But all this came up actually because someone wrote us an email saying that your conversation about slides last week.
Oh, we're going back to the slides. Full circle.
Full circle.
Segue.
Yeah. So last week you brought up the idea that slides are so amazing at playgrounds and such because it gives your kids the opportunity to be brave.
Right.
And bravery increases courageousness, which is a virtuous aspect.
Yes.
And people who are courageous are more likely to spread virtue out into the world. So quite literally, slides are good for society.
There you go. Slides are amazing for society. I agree. I was, I still stand by it. I think slides are an amazing opportunity to just like practice being courageous. Like, oh yeah, I can do this. It's not that like now you're prepared for the world because like, oh, I know I can go, I have conquered a steep hill.
Right.
With velocity. It's like, it's the act of practicing, of like confronting a fear and overcoming it and understand like the more you do that, the more comfortable you become doing it. And I do think that probably helps breed courage in people, which I think is probably a trait that goes undervalued a lot of time, or maybe even misunderstood in like modern day. Like, because when you hear about like courage and bravery, it's very often associated with like facing danger or doing something heroic, especially like in the way we like consume a lot of media. That's often how bravery and courage is represented.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I think more often, not most people are not in like life-threatening, dangerous kind of situations where that kind of bravery or courage is required. More often, the kind of courage you might need is to like speak up in a meeting because you disagreed with someone.
Yep.
Like that is also courage. Like that is a kind of thing that it takes to go and do things.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. And in so many instances too, the like driving force that might cause you to not do something is the general fear of the unknown. Like
Right.
doing any particular new activity or going outside of your comfort zone very frequently are the types of things that out in the real world, these are the real instances I think where bravery is like stepping into the fold.
Yeah.
Like these are the types of things. Like I have to say, like my wife Alice is like a Gryffindor through and through. Though
Yeah.
she's got like immense bravery, because like since we've been together, one of the things that she got really into was weightlifting with
Yeah.
me. So we were, we both own businesses. We're both busy a lot, and so we were like, what's something that we can go and do together? And one of the activities I already was doing very regularly was weightlifting. So she came in and started doing it, and she was getting like very good at it very quickly.
Right.
And the thing about it was our coach was like, okay, there's a competition, like this December, does anybody want to go? And like, I was like, no way.
No
like,
way.
I am not going to go and attempt to lift in front of other people. Like, absolutely not. That would be like, again, fear of the unknown. I would be terrified.
Right.
But Alice is like, yeah, I'll do it. And she like locks into like a training regime, she's like eating a very specific way, like cutting out like all these other, like whatevers. And she's like completely driving towards it. And we get there and we're in a gym full of people who are like weightlifters.
Right.
Like these are people who, we are absolutely, amateur status. And the other people around, it's like they've clearly dedicated like a huge portion of their life to it.
Right. This is their Jeep Wrangler out on the road.
Precisely.
Yeah. Now they're like, okay, it's competition day. Time for everyone to come see.
Right.
Yeah.
But straight up, in the way that they had it, we're in this like, I would almost go so far as to describe it as like gritty. Like the gym itself was kind of.
I do remember I was there.
Yeah. It was kind of like, okay. But the way that they did the lifts is they had like, music playing and like a lot of the lights dimmed, but then like on the almost like center stage were like track lights that pointed in at the person doing the lift in front of everyone, and Allie gets out there and just like crushes it.
Just does it.
I'm like, Al, you've been doing this sport for 9 months and you are now competing in front of people. Like,
right.
Pure bravery.
Well, it totally is. It's interesting to me that you were so wary of joining such a competition, because I feel like you are frequently throwing out other crazy things we should do.
Interesting. Okay, but give me more of that though, because I feel like frequently the crazy things that I would suggest that we do typically wouldn't put me center stage somewhere.
Maybe not center stage somewhere, but it's certainly like fear of the unknown, or it's like let's go do some giant adventure race or start some business, crazy business.
Yes, but this is where I think my general argument would be that I think that a lot of the lucrative ideas that like I might bring to the table, like might present to you or, our parents or friends, Alice, I would say that maybe one of the signifiers of how seriously I take a lot of those ideas is like, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it and researching it and trying to figure out like how it would work so that I could peel back some of that unknown. So like, I feel like I know enough about it to feel confident about how I could approach it.
But doing weightlifting every day for several months wasn't enough to know that you could do a weightlifting competition?
Nope.
Okay.
Yep. Very different. Very
Okay.
different. Well, and I think that maybe there's like some portion of it where I would have more confidence in my entrepreneurial chops than I do in my ability to, back squat 400 pounds.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like with weightlifting, the thing about it is you absolutely know your like limitations.
Right.
It's like if I could only back squat, and this, I think the correct number was like 265 pounds. Like if I were to go into that competition and they were to put 300 pounds on it, like it's not going up. Like
Right.
there's not some instance where it's like, the power of being centerfold is like going to all of a sudden give me an ability that I've just never had.
But okay, but then this is also revealing a lot to me then, because it sounds like the only reason you can conceive to enter the competition is to try and win it.
I do think that there is probably something about that.
Like
yes.
if there's no chance of me winning, why would I even try?
Right.
Right. But I don't imagine Alice thought she was going to win.
That is a very fair point.
This reminds me a lot of the cosplay thing, where it's like, I don't know how to get into cosplay. Like if I'm not already at 100, why should I even dress up?
Yeah, but yes,
Right.
you're not wrong at all.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it is very, very, very revealing about like what is important to me about how I go about doing things. I think even the Jeep Wrangler example is a very good point. It's like, it wasn't enough for me just to have a lifted Jeep. It had to be lifted in a way that other people who know what kind of lift I have
Right.
can appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so like that is like maybe the threshold. But I think on a different level, it also is like the motivation. Like I think that it's understanding my own motivations well enough to know what does motivate me and what doesn't motivate me. Because one of the things that I have always said is that like you can be incredibly smart, you can be top of your class, but the person you can never underestimate is the person who is motivated. Because
for sure.
Someone who wants it and maybe wants it more than you do, I think that is at the core of everything is usually what is going to drive someone to be successful at something.
Right.
And I think that with a lot of the things that maybe I would bring up to you, business ideas or what have you, it's typically the case that I think that I can do it. And that's why I would bring it up.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that all makes sense. That all adds up. Well, let's talk about the other side of courage then, because I feel like this is something I've wanted to bring up before on the pop.
Okay.
But have not so far.
Okay.
So anyway, I think one of the other reasons I think courage is important is because I think it is it's one side of a coin. The other half is consideration. So you have courage and consideration.
Okay.
Maybe not even coins. That sounds like you could only ever have one,
Okay.
which I don't think is the case. But to me, those two things combine are the definition of what it means to be like a mature person.
Okay.
Like, so I think a grand mistake a lot of people assume is that maturity comes with age, end of sentence. That like the older you are, the more mature you are.
Oh,
You know what
I
mean?
understand that completely.
Like, whereas,
yes.
like, no, you could have an 18-year-old who is much more mature than a 50-year-old.
Sure.
You just because you are old does not mean you are not capable of being immature. But I think a lot of people are like, it's like they do the math and they're like, okay, look, I am over 30 and I am older than you. That makes me more mature than you, so I can't possibly be being immature.
Right.
So they like rule it out as a possibility.
Right. Like if you throw a fit at your waiter because your steak was delivered to your table overcooked, you might be like, I am old enough to know that this was problematic enough that like me complaining is the warranted response.
Right.
Like me being upset with you in a like very vocal or out loud or just even visible way. It's like, this is justified.
Right.
But it's like, that might not be the case.
That's not the case.
Yes.
And the way so that's where the courage and the consideration come in.
Okay.
So you need both. And what often happens is that people lean heavily in one direction or the other.
Okay.
On this regard, and that ends in various ways. So if you want to imagine like a 2x2 chart, if you will.
Okay. I can imagine a
you've
2x2
So
chart.
you've got courage running along the y-axis and consideration running along the x-axis. So you have your bottom left square then. That would be like low both.
Okay.
Right?
Yep,
That's
I'm
like
following.
low consideration, low courage. That's going to end you in a lose-lose every time. Basically, it's like you didn't have the courage to speak up and you didn't consider what the other people wanted out of an outcome. Or like, I guess this is the way to like approach like problem solving more often than not, or how to like make mature decisions or whatever. But if you don't have the courage to put forth your ideas, if you don't have the consideration to care about what the other people want, you're not going to get everyone loses.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because there is an idea of groupthink where it has been established that like there's this phenomenon of like a group of people might be trying to be like, okay, where do we want to go for dinner? And like everybody's kind of like tossing out different ideas, but nobody wants to be the person to like put forth like the like I want here.
Yeah.
Let's go here. And so very typically what happens is everybody feels like they're the one compromising.
Right.
And nobody ends up going somewhere they want to go.
Right.
So it's like best case scenario, if you were the person inside of that group and like everybody's waffling and you know where you absolutely want to go, it's like speak up, because at bare minimum, you will get to go where you wanted to go. And like, even if it's the slightest sliver of a win, it's like, otherwise it's very likely that nobody won.
Right. That is a great example of probably someone who has someone with high courage versus low consideration.
Yes.
Where you've got a win-loss situation then.
Right.
Which is what often happens. That, like, in that case, that person won. Everyone else probably still lost, but at least there was a win on the table.
At the very least, yeah, there was something that walked away with it. And speaking from a very utilitarian standpoint, the idea is that you needed dinner. So at the very least, you needed nourishment somehow.
Exactly.
So, yes.
Now, on the flip side of that situation, though, if you're anyone else in that group, what you've probably suffered from is too much consideration without any courage.
Right.
And now you've netted yourself a loss win where you have lost. But at the very least, someone got what they wanted.
This is me.
Yes, this is for sure. You're like, And it's not that win-lose isn't useful sometimes and lose-win isn't useful sometimes.
Sure.
There's not situations where those aren't the correct outcomes, but ideally you get to the win-win, which is where you have high consideration and high courage.
Yes, yeah. And again, going back to that example, I would absolutely be the person in that group who would never speak up and be like, well, I definitely want to go here. So if nobody else is going to decide, then here's where we're going.
Right.
I would totally be the person who would be like, I'm fine with anything. Like,
right.
Wherever you guys want to go, like I'll find something I like no matter what. I don't want to be the problem.
Yeah. So then, though, what you're looking for that with the win-win, though, is the consideration half of it where I think throws a lot of people, because it's like most situations where you're trying to like come up with an agreement together, it's not. Most of the time, you're just so trained to think like, what's best for me, rather than like what's going to be best for the group.
Okay.
And it's like you have to try and treat.
Wait. Let me pause you right there. So you said, are you speaking in specific terms of it is easiest to think about what's going to be best for me based on someone who has high consideration, or do you think that is how most people think?
I think most people fall into either high courage or high consideration.
I see what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is an example of someone who is looking out for themselves is high courage.
Right.
Okay.
I think just the point I'm trying to make is that most people approach situations with an either or mindset. Like either we will win or we will lose.
Okay.
Like either our side, I will get what I want, or they will get what they want. But there's rarely situations, I think, where people are like, how can we both get what we want?
Sure.
And that's what you should be aiming for.
Yes.
In most situations is the win-win. Like, and the way to do that is to, I think, normally try and figure out what is it that the other people actually want out of the situation? What do you actually want out of the situation? And go from there.
Okay.
Not think this is what I want, end of sentence. And if they're not going to give me that, then that's the end of it.
Yes.
You need to know what both people want and then be trying to work towards that before you even have like the plan for just what you want.
Okay, so let me ask you this though, because I do feel like there are instances with that where it's kind of like, like if you were to look at it like maybe numerically in some capacity, like the idea of a true win might be 100. True neutral is 50, losing is 25, and then you would also have this other like partial win at 75. So if that is potentially the case in this particular instance, and you're going for that win-win scenario, is there ever the case that it's kind of like, okay, we'll both get a partial win at 75? Because I would argue that it'd be very difficult in any instance where there could be two ideas that are separate that allow for both people to walk away with 100.
Well, it is difficult.
Okay.
There's no doubt about that. But this is why it's like, that's still like just trying to get it's like, how can I make it so that I get what I want and you get what you want? Which is different from thinking, how can we get what we want?
Right. Okay. But so like, let's say like you really want steak for dinner and I really want sushi for dinner. And it's like, I mean, there is the conceivable location that just serves both.
Right.
But the idea being that, like, let's assume that that's not the case. Is the win-win situation in this particular example one where it's like, okay, let's go get steak tonight, but then next week we'll do sushi. And like the idea there being like, we will both ultimately win at different points.
I think that counts as a win-win.
That counts as a win-win. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because my thinking there would almost be like, let's say, like I want like my sushi place that only sells sushi, and you want your steak place that only sells steak. But there's like, it's like, here's a place that's not as good at either, but it serves both.
Right.
Like that's the instance where it's like, well, we could go to location C, which has both steak and sushi, but it is not as good steak or sushi as the respective other locations could be. To me, that's that 75 win for both people. It's like, well, I got sushi, and you could be like, well, I got steak, but
that's a loss for both people. That's a lose-win on both sides.
Interesting. You would call that okay?
That's probably not a lose-lose, but I would call that each person ending with a lose-win.
Okay.
Whereas I think your other situation where you both agree that like, okay, we'll do this now, we'll get that later, that's a win-win. Unless you have, a third option where it's like, oh, actually, there's this other place that's really great. They serve steak and juice, so we can just go there. Like, oh, yeah, let's do that.
Why don't we think of that? Yeah.
But I think most people would approach it from like, the conversation would end with either we're getting like, if the decision you make, if you don't have like a alternate plan to go like next week to go get the sushi or whatever, if it's just like, we're getting steak tonight, that's it. Like, that's, I think, what a lot of the mindset that you don't want of like.
Yeah, I understand that. That's high courage, no consideration.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Well, and I would say that from my standpoint, just for what it's worth, is that I do think that I have more consideration than courage. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But I do also think that my underlying motivation for many things is to make the people around me happy.
Right.
And I mean, probably like that is the people pleaser personality.
Yep.
And so in some capacity, there is something in my mind, like especially with Alice for dinners, because this comes up, obviously on a nightly basis. It's like, well, what do you want to do tonight? And for me, very frequently, it feels like a win if I am able to provide Alice with the dinner that she wants.
Right.
Because most of the time, I am not going to be particular enough that I'm going to like, I won't be fussed about it. Like, it doesn't even feel like a loss for me to not, because there is no answer to what I want.
See, then that's different though.
It is different.
Because like what you want is to make Alice happy, and what Alice wants is to make Alice happy.
Right.
So you're both getting what you want.
You both get what you want.
Right. Yeah. If you constantly wanted, pasta for dinner, pasta for dinner.
Pasta for dinner.
You want a pasta for dinner, and Alice constantly instead wanted something else, and you were just like, well, okay, I'd rather give you what you want than ask for what I want. That would be you losing.
Well, okay, so my question, though, is in my particular example where it makes me happy for this to happen, it still doesn't exactly feel like courage is in play in that. It just seems like instead of me valuing courage at all, it's pure consideration. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, it's not really like, it's not like I'm having courage by speaking up and being like, well, I want what you want. Like, that doesn't feel like a good example of courage.
Right.
So much as just like courage is almost completely nixed from the board. I just have like just the two squares. Just consideration. So does that make sense?
It does make sense. And maybe it's not a perfect application for every single situation.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's also very reasonable.
Yeah.
Jay, I need your boxes to fit all scenarios.
Exactly.
All circle-shaped scenarios.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I think it's honestly very interesting. And I think that this is something that is very applicable to so many people's daily life. It's like if you start to kind of like take this consideration, or even if you were to like take a screenshot of this graphic from like a Google search or something and just like kind of like keep it somewhere where you could like maybe visually like touch on it here and there once a week, something. Mm-hmm. It's almost like the type of thing where it's like just like a gentle little reminder of like, know, as you're making decisions, like how are you best implementing this?
It is, and like I will tell you that I'm not just like riffing this off the top of my head.
Sure.
That a lot of this, I first read about this concept of like the courage consideration equals maturity in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Okay.
But it is one of those things that upon reading it has like really helped me identify, like it gave me like I would have so many interactions with people where I was like, why does this feel like they're being so unreasonable? Or like, why? Like, I could tell like something was, but I had no like words. I had no like grounding for it. And it was like, this like really helped me immediately identify like, this is what's happening. The people are being like, I was falling victim to the same trait. Like, oh, it's because they're being really immature right now. Like the way a problem is being approached is very immature. Like,
So
it's from a very like either or. I will win. I'm speaking up. I'm being loud. I'm being courageous. So it's like you are, and those are good things, but you have lacked all consideration for the other party.
Yes,
sort of thing.
I understand that completely. And do you find that having this backboard to sort of like now understand the situation, like, is there not some element of like knowledge equals like courage? Because before you didn't know how or why they were behaving the way that they were.
It's very much a situation where I think what it's really helped me identify is like situations in my life where I can practice being more courageous. Like there are unfortunately not as many adult slides out there.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to install more adult slides.
we need more adult slides.
How do we do that?
Yeah, but I can frequently recognize like this is a situation where I should be like it helped me recognize that maybe I do not possess the courage that I wish I did. Like you talked about, like, you know, Alice is like a Gryffindor and she's like very brave. Like I feel the same way about Beth. She's like very often I'll be like, why don't you just like ask those people to like move, or can we like go take their table, or you know, it seems like they're moving or something. I'll be like, I'm not going to talk to those people. No.
right. Yeah.
She'll be like, fine, I'll just go do it. And I'll be like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen you ever do. I was like, oh, I did that.
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, somewhere built inside of that entire thing is tact, because I do think that there are two different ways to deliver the exact same message, and one of them will go well and one of them won't.
Oh, for sure. Sure.
And so, yeah, probably an entire building process.
Yes.
To continue to better yourself.
Right.
But just don't ruminate on things.
Yeah, don't.
If we learned anything, it's I literally did this past weekend. We talked about ruminating a couple weeks ago, which is the idea of like replaying conversations in your head, trying to figure out how you can better prepare for future instances where the same thing came up. I spent the afternoon with Dad. We were like putting the boat in the water, so we spent like the whole morning talking to each other. And I remember getting home that night, and I was just like, I started like doing the exact thing, and I was like, no, stop, don't do that.
Don't do it.
Do not start ruminating on this particular conversation because it's fine.
Right.
So it all comes to show that I think the more exposed that you can be to these particular things, the easier it is to then like manage them.
Right.
Because you can recognize what's going on.
Exactly.
And when you recognize what's going on, you're not afraid of it.
Exactly. So I think there you go. I would totally recommend anyone listening the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It was a very enlightening book to me that I felt like gave me a lot of like roots or like the things to recognize.
There you go. There you go. Okay, well, as we close out today's episode, I have a fun something about coyotes, because I feel like we've gone heavy for a bit, and I think that there's a very soft way that we can close out today's episode.
Do it.
So that people can have a nice, cheery, and heartwarming note to go off of. So this particular instance it's not really a fun fact about coyotes, but I thought that it was a little colonel out there in the real world who has a direct relationship with a coyote that I thought was just so cool. And I was like, this is amazing. And she wrote in and said that she works at a zoo and works with the coyotes. So it's Cameron Reed. And said, I have written down here, it's not a fun fact, but a little colonel works at a zoo with a coyote named Anastasia. Cameron says that coyotes are very soft, especially their ears. They love to play and get butt scratches. And they even sent me videos of the coyote, which if you're watching the video version of it, hopefully they're being displayed on screen right now, and you can see how adorable this coyote is and why we love them so very much.
Oh man, look at that coyote. Yeah. Loves those butt scratches.
We're so pro coyotes over here. How great. Anyway, guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Pop. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can reach out to us. The email does come directly to me. That's popcornculturepod@gmail.com. We're also available again over at Patreon at patreon.com/popcornculture, where we've got all sorts of fun new stuff going on. And so very soon will we have the exclusive piece of merch for the second quarter of this year coming out. I thought we would have it like a month ago now, and it's taking so long, but it will be worth it once it gets here.
It's going to be cool.
So if you guys want to check that out, again, patreon.com/popcornculture. Otherwise, until next week,
pop.